What if one of the coins sitting in your pocket, coin jar, old collection, or even a forgotten drawer could be worth dramatically more than its face value? Most people see a coin from 1972, 1975, or 1987 and think exactly the same thing. It's old, it's common, and it's probably worth only a few cents or $1. But coin collecting doesn't work that way. Sometimes the date is only the beginning of the story. A tiny difference in the lettering, an unusual mint mark, a doubled design, a missing detail, an off-center strike, or an exceptionally well-preserved surface can completely change how collectors view a coin. And that is exactly why you should never judge a 1972, 1975, or 1987 coin simply by looking at the year. In this video, we're going to examine these 3 dates and uncover the details that can separate an ordinary coin from a collectible example. We'll look at what to check, where to look, which mistakes collectors commonly make, why condition matters, and how genuine mint errors can become extremely desirable. And most importantly, I'll show you what you should do if you discover something unusual. So before you throw that old coin into a spending pile, stay until the end. Because the most valuable discovery may not be the oldest looking coin. It could be the one that looks completely ordinary at first glance. Before we examine 1972, 1975, and 1987 individually, there is one important rule every new coin hunter needs to understand. A date does not automatically make a coin rare. Just because a coin is several decades old does not mean it is worth thousands of dollars. This is one of the biggest misconceptions in modern coin collecting. The real value of a coin can depend on several factors working together. These include rarity, condition, mint of origin, variety, errors, demand from collectors, and whether the coin can be authenticated as genuine. That means you could have 2 coins with exactly the same date and denomination, yet one might be worth face value, while the other could attract serious collector interest. This is why experienced collectors don't simply search for old coins. They search for differences. When examining a 1972, 1975, or 1987 coin, start with the basics. Look at the date. Then check the mint mark if the coin has one. Examine the lettering. Look closely at the portrait or central design. Inspect the rim. Look at the reverse. Then examine the coin under good lighting from different angles. You are looking for something that appears unusual and, importantly, something that could have happened during the minting process. That distinction matters. A damaged coin is not automatically an error. A scratch caused by another coin is not a mint error. A dent from circulation is not a rare variety. A strange-looking edge could simply be damage. Collectors pay premiums for legitimate varieties and errors because those characteristics were created during production or because the coin represents a recognized collectible variety. So when you find something unusual, don't immediately assume you've found a fortune. Instead, ask a better question. Could this difference have happened at the mint? That question can save you from wasting time and can also help you identify the coins that deserve a much closer examination. And now, let's start with our first date. The 1972 date is particularly interesting to collectors because coins from this year can appear completely ordinary, while certain varieties and errors can command much more attention. And this is where your inspection skills become important. When you find a 1972 coin, don't immediately put it away. First, identify exactly what denomination you're holding. Different denominations from the same year can have completely different varieties, production histories, mintages, and collector demand. Once you've identified the denomination, examine the coin carefully. Start with the date. Look at the individual digits. Are the numbers shaped normally? Do any parts of the date appear doubled? Does the lettering show unusual separation? Is there any strange distortion around the digits? Remember that genuine doubling can have a very specific appearance. It is not simply a blurry image or a shadow caused by lighting. This is why using a magnifying glass and changing the angle of the light can be extremely helpful. Next, examine the mint mark. If your coin has a mint mark, identify it and compare it with examples from the same date and denomination. Then move to the main design. Look around the portrait, inscriptions, stars, lettering, and other major features. A genuine doubled die variety can show noticeable separation or doubling in specific design elements. But here's an important warning. Machine doubling is often mistaken for a valuable doubled die. The two can look similar to an inexperienced collector, but they are not the same thing. Machine doubling is generally a striking-related effect and usually does not carry the same premium as a recognized double die variety. That's why serious collectors compare the exact location and shape of suspected doubling rather than simply saying, "It looks doubled." Another factor is condition. A rare variety in heavily damaged condition may be worth far less than a spectacular example with sharp details and attractive surfaces. So if you have a 1972 coin, don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't scrape it. Don't try to make the surfaces shine. Cleaning can permanently damage the coin and may significantly reduce its desirability to collectors. Instead, preserve it exactly as you found it. The lesson with 1972 is simple. Don't assume every coin is valuable. But don't assume every 1972 coin is ordinary either. Inspect it carefully. Because the difference between an everyday coin and an interesting collectible can sometimes be incredibly small. Now let's take our 1972 inspection one step further. Imagine you found a 1972 coin and something about it looks strange. Maybe the lettering seems doubled. Maybe the date looks unusual. Maybe the coin appears slightly off-center. Maybe the rim seems thicker on one side. Or perhaps the design looks like it was struck twice. What should you do? First, stop handling it unnecessarily. Hold the coin by its edges. Avoid touching the surfaces with your fingers. Next, use a strong light source. Natural light can work, but a bright desk lamp can also help. Rotate the coins slowly. You are trying to determine whether the unusual feature remains visible from different angles. If the feature disappears when the lighting changes, it may simply be a reflection, surface mark, or optical effect. If it remains consistent, take a closer look. Now examine the rim. Off-center strikes can sometimes be obvious because part of the design is shifted toward the edge. But not every irregular-looking coin is valuable. A coin can become damaged after leaving the mint. It can be hit by machinery, dropped, crushed, or struck against another object. These events can create strange shapes that may look impressive, but are simply post-mint damage. This is one of the most important lessons for anyone searching circulation coins. A coin can look extremely unusual and still have little collector value. The key is determining when and how the unusual characteristic occurred. A genuine mint error generally originates during the manufacturing process. For example, an improperly aligned die, a problem involving the planchet, or an unusual striking event can create a legitimate error. But a coin that gets bent inside a parking meter is not suddenly a mint error. That distinction is critical. And there is another thing you should watch for on 1972 coins. Condition. Two otherwise similar coins can have dramatically different collector appeal depending on preservation. Look for sharp details, original surfaces, minimal scratches, and strong overall eye appeal. If the coin appears unusually clean and well preserved, don't clean it further. Natural original surfaces are generally preferable to a polished appearance. If your 1972 coin appears to have a genuine variety or error, the next step is research and authentication. Compare it with reputable reference images. Look for the exact diagnostic characteristics. And if the potential value is significant, consider having the coin examined by a professional grading or authentication service. Never rely solely on a viral social media post claiming that every example of a certain date is worth thousands. That is how collectors get misled. Your goal isn't to believe that every unusual coin is a jackpot. Your goal is to identify the small percentage that truly deserves attention. And that's what makes searching so exciting. Now let's move to 1975. At first glance, a 1975 coin may not look especially exciting. It is not a recent coin, but it is also not ancient. And that's exactly why many people overlook it. They assume that because millions of coins were produced around this era, there can't possibly be anything interesting left to find. But coin collecting isn't just about how many coins were produced. It's about what happened to individual pieces during production, what varieties exist, how many examples survived in certain conditions, and what collectors are willing to pursue. When examining a 1975 coin, begin exactly where we started with 1972. Identify the denomination. Then identify the mint. Then inspect the date. Then examine the major design elements. Don't rush. The biggest mistake beginners make is scanning a coin for 2 seconds and deciding it's worthless. A proper examination can take several minutes. Look at the lettering. Check whether any letters appear doubled or distorted. Examine the date under magnification. Look around the portrait and reverse design. Inspect the edge. And check the overall shape of the coin. If the edge looks unusual, compare it with another normal example of the same denomination. Comparison is one of the most powerful tools available to a collector. If you only look at one coin, something may seem strange. If you place it beside a normal example, the difference can become obvious. You should also pay attention to the coin's surfaces. Are there unusual lines? Are they raised or in cues? Do they cross the design? Do they appear random? Are they consistent with normal circulation damage? Raised lines that are part of the original strike can tell a different story from scratches that cut into the surface after the coin entered circulation. This is why experienced collectors study the direction, shape, depth, and location of marks. Another important factor is wear. A coin that has been in circulation for decades can develop countless scratches, dents, stains, and abrasions. These marks may make the coin look unusual, but they generally don't make it rare. That's why you should focus on characteristics that are difficult to explain as normal damage. And if your 1975 coin does have an unusual mint characteristic, don't clean it. Even if the coin looks dirty. Even if you think polishing will reveal more details. Cleaning can leave permanent hairlines and alter the original surface. A collector may prefer an original, naturally aged coin over one that has been aggressively polished. So remember, the goal isn't to make the coin look new. The goal is to preserve what makes it collectible. Let's talk about errors. The word error is one of the strongest attention grabbers in coin collecting. But it is also one of the most misunderstood. Not every unusual coin is an error. A genuine mint error happens when something goes wrong during the manufacturing process. Depending on the denomination and production process, errors can involve the planchet, die, striking alignment, or other stages of production. One category collectors commonly recognize is an off-center strike. This occurs when the coin isn't properly centered during striking. The result can be a design that is visibly shifted toward one side. Another type involves a broad strike, where the coin is struck outside the normal collar configuration and can spread differently than a normal example. There are also clipped planchets, where part of the blank is missing because of an issue involving the planchet cutting process. Then there are die-related errors and varieties. These can create doubled, missing, distorted, or otherwise unusual design elements. But again, you have to distinguish genuine mint characteristics from damage. Let's say you find a 1975 coin with what looks like a bite missing from the edge. That could potentially be interesting, but it could also have been damaged after leaving the mint. You need to examine the shape and characteristics carefully. Likewise, if you see a strange line across the coin, don't immediately call it a die crack. A die crack is a feature related to the die itself and can produce a raised line on struck coins. A scratch caused after circulation will behave differently. This is why collectors learn to identify the difference between raised and incused marks. One simple test is to use magnification and observe the light. A raised feature can interact with light differently than a scratch cut into the surface. But even that isn't enough by itself. The entire coin must be considered. The most valuable discoveries are usually not identified simply because something looks weird. They are identified because the unusual characteristic matches known minting behavior or a documented variety. So if you think you found an important 1975 error, document it. Take clear photographs. Record the denomination and mint mark. Compare it against trusted references. And if the potential value is substantial, seek expert authentication. That's how you turn an exciting discovery into a properly investigated discovery. Now we come to 1987. This is a fascinating date for another reason. A coin from 1987 can look much newer than a coin from 1972 or 1975, especially if it has been stored properly. That can cause people to overlook it completely. But age alone is not what determines collectible value. And this is where 1987 becomes interesting. When you find a 1987 coin, don't ask only, is this old enough to be valuable? Instead, ask, is there anything unusual about this specific example? Start with the denomination. Then check the mint mark. Then examine the date. Look closely at the design. Use magnification. And compare the coin with a normal example. One of the most useful habits you can develop is taking your time. The human eye is very good at recognizing something unusual, but it can also be fooled. A reflection can look like doubling. A scratch can look like a die crack. Wear can make lettering look distorted. A stain can make a surface feature appear deeper than it really is. This is why lighting is so important. Try examining the coin under direct light. Then move the light source. Rotate the coin. Turn it upside down. Look from the side. If the characteristic remains consistent, it deserves more investigation. If it disappears completely, it may have been a lighting effect. Now inspect the edge. A coin's edge can contain important clues. Depending on the denomination, you may be looking for abnormalities in thickness, shape, or striking. But again, compare it against a normal example. If possible, weigh the coin using a sufficiently accurate digital scale, appropriate for coin examination. Weight differences can sometimes provide clues about planchet-related issues. However, a difference in weight does not automatically prove an error. Scale accuracy, wear, dirt, damage, and normal production tolerances can all affect measurements. This is why weight is evidence, not a verdict. If your 1987 coin appears to have an unusual feature, document everything. Photograph the obverse. Photograph the reverse. Photograph the edge. Take close-ups of the suspected error. Then compare the characteristics with reliable references. This approach is much more powerful than simply searching for 1987 coin worth $10,000. Why? Because sensational headlines often mix ordinary coins with extremely rare examples. The real question is not whether someone somewhere sold a rare coin for a large amount. The question is whether your coin has the exact characteristics that made that rare example valuable. That's the difference between coin collecting and coin guessing. If you remember only one section from this video, remember this one. The biggest mistake beginners make is confusing damage with a mint error. Imagine you discover a coin with a strange raised mark. You immediately think, that's an error. But stop. Ask yourself where the mark is located. Is it consistent with a known die feature? Does it appear on other examples? Does it make sense as part of the minting process? Or could it have happened after the coin was already in circulation? Coins spend years being handled by millions of people. They are dropped. They are scratched. They are pushed through machines. They are stored with other coins. They are carried in pockets. They are exposed to chemicals. They can be bent, crushed, heated, polished, and damaged in countless ways. All of these events can create bizarre-looking coins. And bizarre doesn't necessarily mean valuable. A genuine error is valuable because it represents an unusual production event. That is why context matters. For example, suppose you see what looks like doubling on the date. Instead of immediately assuming you have a doubled die, examine the shape. Is there true separation between design elements? Is the doubling visible in multiple appropriate locations? Does it match known characteristics of the variety? Or does it look like a flat, shelf-like distortion? That could point toward machine doubling rather than a valuable double die variety. Now consider an off-center looking coin. Is the design genuinely shifted from the center? Or has the coin simply been damaged along one side? Look at the rim and the relationship between the design and edge. Again, comparison is essential. Take a normal coin of the same denomination and place it next to your suspected error. Suddenly, differences become much easier to understand. Another common mistake is assuming that any missing letter or number is valuable. Sometimes lettering can be weak because of wear or strike quality. Sometimes dirt or damage can obscure a design feature. A genuine missing element should be evaluated in the context of the minting process. And one more warning. Never manufacture an error yourself. Don't scratch a coin. Don't bend it. Don't remove metal. Don't polish it. Don't drill it. Don't try to create a dramatic appearance. That destroys collector value rather than creating it. The most valuable discovery is the one you preserve exactly as it was found. Now let's talk about condition. You can find two coins with the same date, denomination, and mint mark, and they can have completely different collector appeal. Why? Condition. A coin that has spent decades circulating can show heavy wear. The highest points of the design may become smooth. Fine details can disappear. The surfaces can develop scratches and contact marks. The rim can become damaged. The overall appearance can become dull. Meanwhile, another example of the same date may have spent decades protected inside a collection. It may have sharp details, original surfaces, minimal marks, strong luster, and excellent eye appeal. That difference can be extremely important to collectors. This is why you should never clean a potentially valuable coin. A person may think, "This coin is dirty, I'll make it shiny." But collectors generally understand that original surfaces matter. Aggressive cleaning can leave scratches and unnatural surfaces that are immediately visible under magnification. The result can be a coin that looks shinier but is actually less desirable. If your coin is dirty, the safest approach is usually to leave it alone unless you know exactly what you're doing. And remember that condition isn't simply about whether a coin looks shiny. A shiny coin can still be heavily damaged. A naturally toned coin can still be extremely attractive. Professional grading considers multiple aspects of preservation and appearance. For a potentially valuable 1972, 1975, or 1987 coin, condition should be considered alongside rarity and variety. A common coin in exceptional condition can sometimes attract collector interest. A rare variety in poor condition can still be valuable, but the amount may be very different from a top-quality example. This is another reason online price claims can be misleading. You might see a headline saying, "This coin is worth thousands," but that may refer to a specific variety in an exceptionally high grade. It does not mean every coin with the same date is worth thousands. Always look at the complete description of the coin. date, denomination, mint mark, variety, era, grade, certification, and actual market demand. Those details matter far more than the year printed on the coin. Now let's turn this into a practical search. If you have a jar, box, drawer, or collection containing old coins, don't dump everything onto the table and randomly grab pieces. Create a simple system. First, separate the coins by denomination. Then arrange them by date. Put the 1972 coins together. Then the 1975 coins. Then the 1987 coins. This immediately makes your search easier. Next, inspect the mint marks. Then look for obvious errors. Then check condition. Use a magnifying glass. Use good lighting. And if possible, keep a digital scale available for coins where weight may help with identification. Take notes. If you find something unusual, don't throw it back into the pile. Place it in a safe holder or flip. Write down what you noticed. For example, 1972, possible doubling on date. 1975, unusual rim. 1987, possible off-center strike. This simple habit can prevent you from losing track of interesting pieces. Next, compare your coin against trusted references. Don't rely on one random social media photograph. Use multiple sources whenever possible. If a particular variety is recognized, look for its diagnostic characteristics. You want to know exactly what makes the variety different. This is incredibly important because counterfeit and altered coins exist. Someone can take an ordinary coin and alter its date, mint mark, or design to make it appear rare. That's why authentication matters when the stakes become high. If you discover something potentially valuable, resist the temptation to sell it immediately to the first person who says, "I'll give you $50. Do your research first. Find out what the coin actually is. Determine whether the feature is genuine. Then evaluate the condition. If necessary, seek professional authentication. The goal is not simply to find a buyer. The goal is to understand what you own. And there is another important point. Don't become obsessed with the headline value. A coin doesn't become valuable because a video says it can be worth thousands. The actual market determines value. Auction results, collector demand, rarity, condition, authenticity, and the exact variety all matter. That's why smart collectors focus on identification first and price second. So why focus on these 3 dates? Because they provide an excellent lesson in how coin hunting really works. 1972 teaches us to pay attention to varieties, doubling, mint marks, and condition. 1975 reminds us that a coin doesn't have to be extremely old to deserve inspection. And 1987 shows us that even relatively modern-looking coins can contain interesting characteristics worth investigating. Together, these dates demonstrate one of the most exciting parts of the hobby. You don't always know what you're going to find. You might search through dozens of ordinary coins before finding one that makes you stop. Maybe it's a dramatic error. Maybe it's a recognized variety. Maybe it's an unusually high-grade example. Or maybe you simply discover something unusual that sends you into hours of research. That's part of the fun. But there is also a bigger lesson. Don't search for coins based only on dramatic dollar amounts. Search for characteristics. Search for differences. Search for documented varieties. Learn the minting process. Understand how errors happen. Learn how damage occurs. And become familiar with normal examples. The more normal coins you study, the easier it becomes to recognize abnormal ones. That's exactly how experienced collectors develop their eyes. They don't magically know what every coin is worth. They train themselves to notice details. And that's something anyone can learn. You don't need an expensive collection to begin. You can start with the coins already around you. Your change. Your coin jar. Old family collections. Estate boxes. Bank rolls. Coins you've ignored for years. Just remember to be realistic. Most coins you find will be ordinary. That's normal. The excitement comes from knowing that every once in a while, something genuinely unusual can appear. And when it does, you want to be prepared. Let's say you've searched your collection and found a 1972, 1975, or 1987 coin that looks genuinely unusual. What now? Step 1. Don't clean it. Step 2. Don't alter it. Step 3. Don't sell it immediately. Instead, preserve it. Handle it by the edges. Place it in a suitable coin holder. Then photograph it. Take a clear photo of the front. A clear photo of the back. A close-up of the date. A close-up of the mint mark. And photographs of the edge if the edge appears unusual. Good photographs make research much easier. Next, identify the exact denomination. This may sound obvious, but it matters because different denominations have different production characteristics. Then research the suspected variety or error. Look for the exact diagnostic feature. If someone claims a coin is valuable because of doubling, determine where the doubling should appear. If someone claims it is an off-center strike, examine the amount and direction of the displacement. If someone claims it is a clipped planchet, study the shape and characteristics of the missing area. Don't simply compare the overall appearance. Compare the specific feature. If the coin still appears significant, consider professional authentication. This is especially important if the potential value is substantial. A professional opinion can help determine whether the coin is genuine and whether the variety or error is legitimate. For particularly valuable coins, professional grading can also provide an independent assessment of condition. But don't pay huge fees just because somebody on the internet told you that your coin is worth a fortune. Research first. Understand what you have. Then decide whether professional services make sense. And remember, sometimes the most valuable thing you gain from finding a rare coin isn't the money. It's the knowledge. Once you learn how to identify one genuine variety, you become better at identifying others. Your eyes become trained. Your research skills improve. And suddenly, every coin becomes more interesting. Here's a challenge you can do today. Find one 1972 coin. Find one 1975 coin. And find one 1987 coin. Put all three under good lighting. Don't search the internet yet. Just look at them. Study the date. Study the mint mark. Study the lettering. Study the portrait. Study the reverse. Study the rim. Study the edge. Then ask yourself, what is different? This simple exercise trains your observation skills. Now compare each coin to another example of the same denomination. That's when you may start noticing details you missed before. Maybe one coin has a slightly different appearance because of wear. Maybe another has a stronger strike. Maybe one has unusual damage. Or maybe one has a genuine mint-related characteristic. The point isn't to convince yourself that every difference is valuable. The point is to learn why the difference exists. That's what separates a collector from someone simply hunting for lottery tickets. Coin collecting is essentially detective work. The date is your first clue. The mint mark is another. The design is another. The condition is another. The error or variety is another. And when you combine all those clues, you can begin to identify exactly what you're looking at. So take your time. Use magnification. Use reliable references. Compare examples. And never let a giant dollar figure distract you from the evidence. Because if your coin really is rare, the characteristics should tell the story. Before we finish, there is one more thing you need to hear. You are going to see countless videos and posts claiming that a particular 1972, 1975, or 1987 coin is worth an unbelievable amount of money. Some claims may be based on real sales. Others may be exaggerated. And some may completely misunderstand what makes the rare example valuable. A headline might say, 1972 coin worth $10,000. But the actual coin may be a very specific variety in exceptional condition. The ordinary version may be worth dramatically less. This is why you should never evaluate your coin from the headline alone. Read the details. What denomination? What mint? What variety? What era? What grade? What condition? What authentication? What actual sale? These questions matter. Also remember that auction prices can vary. One exceptional coin can sell for an extraordinary amount because multiple collectors want it at the same time. That does not automatically establish a price for every similar coin. So if you see a huge number attached to a coin, don't get discouraged if your example doesn't match it. Instead, learn what created that value. Maybe it was an extremely rare variety. Maybe it was a spectacular mint era. Maybe it was an exceptional grade. Once you understand the reason, you can examine your own coin more intelligently. That's the goal of this entire video. Not to promise that every 1972, 1975, or 1987 coin is a hidden fortune, but to make sure you don't overlook the unusual ones. Let's quickly recap exactly what you should look for. If you find a 1972 coin, examine the date closely. Look for unusual doubling or recognized varieties. Check the mint mark. Inspect the major design elements. Study the condition. And compare the coin with reliable examples. For 1975, don't assume the coin is ordinary simply because it doesn't look ancient. Check the denomination. Check the mint. Look for genuine mint errors. Inspect the rim and edge. Look for unusual striking characteristics. And distinguish mint damage from post-mint damage. For 1987, remember that a relatively modern appearance doesn't mean the coin is automatically uninteresting. Check the date. Check the mint mark. Inspect the design. Study the edge. Compare the weight when appropriate. Look for genuine errors and varieties. And always verify unusual features before believing a large value claim. Across all three dates, remember the same rules. Don't clean the coin. Don't scratch it. Don't polish it. Don't bend it. Don't alter it. Don't assume an unusual mark is an error. And don't assume a viral price applies to every example. Instead, preserve the coin and investigate it carefully. So after everything we've covered, there's one question left. Do you have a 1972, 1975, or 1987 coin hiding somewhere that you've never really examined? Maybe it's sitting at the bottom of a coin jar. Maybe it's in an old collection. Maybe it's in a drawer. Maybe you've carried it around for years without ever looking closely at the details. And that's exactly why coin hunting can be so exciting. You don't always need to buy an expensive collection. Sometimes the opportunity begins with the coins you already have. But remember, the goal isn't to believe that every old coin is worth thousands. The goal is to know what to look for. A genuine error. A recognized variety. An unusual mint characteristic. Exceptional condition. A rare combination of features. Those are the clues that deserve attention. So take another look at your 1972 coins. Then check your 1975 coins. Then examine your 1987 coins. Use a magnifying glass. Use good lighting. Compare them with normal examples. Research the exact characteristics. And if you think you've discovered something genuinely rare, get it authenticated before making any major decision. Because sometimes the difference between an ordinary coin and a valuable collectible isn't obvious from across the room. It can be hidden in a tiny detail. A tiny detail on a date. A tiny detail on a letter. A tiny difference in the strike. A tiny minting mistake. And that's why you should never judge a coin too quickly. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe because we're going to keep searching for the rare varieties, unusual errors, and overlooked coins that collectors need to know about. And now I want to know from you. Which one are you checking first? 1972, 1975, or 1987? And if you've ever found a coin with a strange error or unusual feature, tell us about it in the comments. You never know. The next interesting discovery could be sitting in your own coin jar right now. Check your coins, learn the details, and never spend a potentially rare coin before you know what you're holding.